Episode 24 begins at Sakura's school. It's 11 o'clock in the morning. Everyone's in the classroom: Chelsea, Nikki, Rita, Madison, and Sakura. So Madison wants to know from Sakura if she could stop by at Sakura's house a little later that afternoon. Sure, Sakura says. It sounds like fun. Then Madison says, even better, I can bring some treats with me. That's great, Sakura says, because as she says in her case, Kira will go hog wild over it. Or, as the saying goes, go crazy over him. Then Sakura, however, says in her case that even though Kira will eat anything, but Madison's treats were always his favorites. So Madison suggested that she'll stop by at her house on the way. So Sakura agrees. So long story short, meanwhile at the Avalon residence, after stopping by at her house, Madison went to Sakura's house. So after Sakura lets in her best friend Madison, that's when Madison wants to know if she and Sakura can discuss some business matters. Of course we can, Sakura says, and they went upstairs to Sakura's upstairs room. Then Sakura told her best friend that even better, since her father and her brother were out for the day, they'll be home a little bit later. So in Sakura's room, Kira was saying to Madison, it's good to see you. Well, Sakura has told Madison how happy Kira was when she told Kira the news about Madison bringing treats for him. Oh, Madison brought a treat, all right, so by the time that herself and Sakura sat on the floor, what Kira saw was unbelievable. Madison just brought a box of strawberry shortcake for herself and, of course, Sakura and Kira. Now, Kira can tell that he was very overjoyed when he saw it. Even Sakura saw the strawberry shortcake itself and says, gee, that looks great. And Carol says, well, what are we waiting for? Let's eat it. Wait a minute, Sakura says, let's not do that just yet. But first of all, Madison said that she has something to discuss with us first. So Sakura asked her best friend a question. Since you're here anyway, what do you want to talk to me about? Well, Madison says, I think it's about time I took your measurements. Again, Sakura asks, but your costumes always fit me perfectly. That's true, Madison says, but don't forget, you are growing up after all. And of course, she's not kidding. In the meantime, as for Kiro, he was busy admiring the strawberry shortcake that Madison had made earlier, and he just couldn't take his eyes off of it. Finally, Sakura's measurements were finished, and of course, she couldn't wait to try on that new outfit that Madison had made. It's a blue dress with a white apron and blue shoes to match. Now we know how Alice in Wonderland feels. And of course, that's not all. Sakura has a pink ribbon on her hair. And she says, oh, this is very embarrassing. Well, why not? Madison says. You are a card captor, and as every person knows, you have a battle costume. And of course, Madison isn't kidding. And of course, Kiro only has a hat on his head to match with the Sakura's outfit. So he says, come on, I can't wait any longer. Let's eat this shortcake, shall we? Outside the Avalon residence, something or someone is trying to get into the window of Sakura and Tori's father, Aiden's room. Back in Sakura's room, that's when Sakura has heard or something that's totally weird inside of her and Tori's father's room. And so did Kiro. Now Madison, who agrees with Sakura and Kiro that she can tell that they're really on to something. As Sakura closes her eyes for a minute, she, however, had a thought that it might be a you-know-what, and it's coming from Sakura and Tori's father's room. To investigate further, Sakura stepped out of her room and looked around in the hallway. And that's when she realizes that the you-know-what is in Sakura and Tori's father's room. So Sakura knows what to do. She, as always, transforms the cloud key into a cloud staff, like she normally does. Next thing you know, she decides to go inside both her and Tori's father's room, which she's never been to before. But before that could happen, Sakura told Kiro to stay with her best friend, Madison, and Kiro agrees. So Madison says, "Be careful, Sakura." "I will," Sakura said, and so she heads off. So anyway, back with Sakura, who had just left her bedroom to do some investigating from the hallway to the bottom of the stairway, until finally at last she sensed something or someone that's coming from inside both her and Tori's father's room, which she's never been to before. And as I explained before, that up until now she has never been in her father's bedroom. So she decides to investigate inside, in which she did. So now that Sakura's inside of both her and Tori's father's room, she's never seen anything like it before. There's a bed up against the wall. There's a window with green curtains on it. There's a desk with a lamp on top of it. And so, as she investigates further, she knows that the you know what is around somewhere, but the problem is, it's tricky to find. Before long, Sakura spotted something or someone that just flew in the window moments ago, but now it's gone. But then behind her, she spotted something that is so small you can use a magnifying glass that's jumping on both her and Tori's father's bed. It's a you know what, all right, the little card. In fact, the size of it itself is so small, it's like I said, you need a magnifying glass for it. So Sakura knows what to do. She's about to seal the little card, but before she could do anything about it, the little card's form jumped right on top of her. And the next thing you know, Sakura fell on the floor. And by the time that she screamed, went back in Sakura's room, when Madison sensed that something was wrong, she knows she has to hurry to both Sakura and Tori's father's room to find out what's going on in there. Meanwhile, in Aiden's bedroom, Sakura woke up on the floor only to find out she's small in size now. And the reason why she's so small is because she looked around her father's room a little bit. She looked around to see that there's her father's chair, her father's bed, and everything else. And of course, her cloud key is so big now. In fact, she now knows what was going on. The little card has shrunk her to size. And so she's now the same size as the little card's form did. Then suddenly, before you know it, a gust of wind just went through the window of Aiden's room. It manages to pick up Sakura up in the air a little bit, and the next thing you know, it flew her right out the window. And so by the time that Kira and Madison arrived, the room was empty, except for Sakura's key, of course, that Madison had found on the floor. Now she's left to wonder what is going on and where's Sakura? Carol finds this very, very weird and then told Madison, who's Sakura's best friend, this is not like Sakura to leave things that's so important lying around. You're right, Madison said. I'm getting really worried about her. But what Madison doesn't realize is that Sakura, who is now small in size, is now outside of her own house. Speaking of Sakura back with her, by the time that she woke up, thanks to a gust of wind that blew her out from upstairs, that's when she saw something coming towards her. It's a cat. And then she took a few steps back and said to the cat, "You don't really want to eat me." And then she turned around and ran off, with the cat following her. Well, luckily for Sakura, she jumped down. And good news for her, she landed on the top of the flower that was right below her. So now that Sakura's on top of one of the flowers, she says to herself, "Oh boy, am I going to have a field day with this? If I don't have my staff and return to my normal size and quick, I'm going to be stuck like this." But then something just grabbed her from behind. It's a praying mantis. So by the time that both the mantis and the Sakura fell off the flower and they both landed on the ground, that's when Sakura ran off. But by the time the Sakura ran off, the mantis was chasing her. So anyway, back with Sakura with the mantis chasing her. Luckily for her, the cat came to her rescue and crushed the mantis. But unfortunately for Sakura, she's still running. So meanwhile, back at the Avalon residence, Madison's now downstairs in the living room. Kira goes first to speak in this case to say, "I don't get it. This is not like her. Where could she have gone?" Now Madison, on the other hand, is getting worried and concerned. And of course, Kira assures Madison that she could never have gotten far. and that she would be back very soon. Then suddenly Madison and Kuro just heard the door open, and in walks in Sakura's brother Tori and his best friend Julian. Now, Kuro, who heard what had happened, he decides to hide behind the couch. The first thing that Tori did as he was walking in was to say hello to Sakura's best friend, and so did Julian. So Tori goes first to ask Madison a question. Where's Sakura? Well, Madison hesitated, and then instead of telling Tori the truth, she says, well, she went grocery shopping at the moment, but she'll be back very, very soon. So then Tori asks, so you mean to say you're all by yourself? Well, right at the moment, Madison said. And of course, Kira was horrified and worried. So back outside the Avalon residence with Sakura, who has just been saved by the cat from the mantis, she just climbed out the window. And she went inside the upstairs bathroom. And there she saw it, the little card's form about the size of a pea. So when she looked at it, she couldn't believe it. She says, so you're the little card, huh? Well, you're the one who made me small, just like you, she said. Then Sakura said, now thanks to you, I'm almost the cat's lunch and that praying mantis, and that was no joke. So when Sakura saw that the little card's form was getting away, she had an idea. So she decides to jump from the window inside the upstairs bathroom. And then she bounced on the sponge for a while and started chasing after the little card's form. Back in the living room, Madison was all by herself with Sakura's brother Tori and, of course, his best friend Julian. Now she was having tea with them. So after Madison thanked Julian for the tea, that's when Madison told her brother Tori and, of course, her brother's best friend Julian, oh yeah, I almost forgot. Earlier, I brought some strawberry cheesecake. It's upstairs in Sakura's room. Let me go get it from upstairs, she suggested. And so Madison heads off. Before Madison can head off, she picks up Kiro from behind the couch and then hides Kiro behind her. And without even Sakura's brother Tori and his best friend Julian of noticing. So after that, Madison heads off to Sakura's room from upstairs. So back with Madison, who was on her way upstairs to Sakura's room, that's when Carol made a compliment with her. And then he said that he has a plan. So he says, I'm going to go outside and look for her. And Madison says, okay, just make sure that her brother Tori and, of course, his best friend Julian don't see you, okay? So Madison and Carol agreed to split up. So back in the upstairs bathroom, well, good news for Sakura, she manages to get out of the bathtub, which she says in her case is very large, and she's not kidding. Well, after she's rested up for a while, now all she has to do is get down from the bathtub. And of course, she does it in the best way that she knows how. So good news for Sakura, she's now on the bathroom floor, and that's when she saw the little car's form again. And just when it's about to get away, that's when Sakura decides to chase after it. So anyway, Sakura continues to chase the little car's form into the dining room kitchen. So as Sakura continues to chase the little car's form in the dining room, that's when she hears the voice of her brother, Tori. And he just told his best friend in the living room, gee, Sakura's taking an awful long time. And then he goes inside the dining room kitchen. But he didn't even notice Sakura was there. That's because she was hiding. So back with Tori, who was Sakura's brother, he just went into the kitchen with the tea kettle. Back with Sakura, who's shrunk to size at the moment, and that's when she pleaded herself a case to say that there's no way she's going to look for that little card's form, not with her brother noticing. So anyway, back with Sakura, she didn't have to look for the little card's form for very far because it's in the kitchen along with her brother, Tori. But she knows she has to do something quick because she knows if she doesn't, then her brother will be shrunk to size just like she did. So when Sakura was yelling at her brother to look out, that's when he stopped and then looked around a little bit. At first, he thought he heard his own sister calling him, but he decides to think nothing of it, so he's safe for now. That's the good news. So now that Sakura's brother heads back to the living room with his best friend Julian, back with Sakura, she saw the little car's form just up ahead at the bottom of the stairs. So after Sakura saw the little car's form going up the stairs, she now realizes that the stairs is so big and so high. And now she's left to wonder how she's going to get up there to the second floor. And that's when Kiro shows up. Well, good news for Kiro now that he's found Sakura, now shrunk to size, he was more than happy to give her the lift upstairs. So now that they're now upstairs, Sakura just told Kiro what had happened earlier back at her father's room. Let's not forget Tori's as well. So Kiro told Sakura about the little card and what it does. And now she wants to know how come her staff didn't shrink and instead she did. Well, the little card is good what it does. It not only shrinks objects down to size, of course, no pun intended. So Sakura wants to know from Kiro how she's going to get herself back to normal size. Well, Kiro said there is one solution. If the little card's form can touch you to shrink you down, maybe it could touch you again so you could get yourself to normal again. That sounds like a good plan, Sakura says, but there's only one problem. If I do go back to normal size, I'm still going to need my key. Well, Kiro says, I got some good news. Madison has your key. She does, Sakura said. So that means we have to hurry, Sakura says, because if we don't, Madison could be in trouble. Sakura and Sakura knew that there was no time to waste. So back at Sakura's room, Sakura's best friend Madison, who was all by herself, she clutches Sakura's key to her chest and then says to herself, I hope she's okay. So, long story short, Madison steps out of Sakura's room and looks in the hallway and saw something so small that even she herself couldn't see it. So by the time that Madison saw what was going on and it's the little car's form, she looks down at it. Next thing you know, Madison was looking at the little card's form face to face for the first time. Next thing you know, she was about to touch it. That's when she heard the voice of her best friend saying, Madison, don't! And next thing you know, Sakura jumps from Kiro, grabs the little card, and good news for her, she's now back to her normal size again. Her being Sakura, of course. So that leaves Madison tossing Sakura her key. So, after that, Sakura knows what to do. She uses her staff to catch the little car's form before the whole thing starts up again, and she did. So, after the little cord was caught, that makes it number 24 on Sakura's list. Well, good news for Sakura, she's now back to her normal size. But she accidentally sat on Kiro when she did that. So she apologized. Well, also the good news is that let's just hope that Sakura doesn't have to go through like this again. Now that she's back to normal. And oh, don't worry, Kiro's fine. So now that Sakura's back to normal, she, Madison, her brother, and her brother's best friend can now have some strawberry cheesecake downstairs in the living room, of course. So as everyone was having cheesecake, Julian made a compliment with Madison to say, This tastes great. Well, thanks a lot, Madison said. Then Madison told Sakura that even better, I can teach her how to do it someday. Really? That's great, Sakura said. And of course, Julian says there's something even more better. I can taste it. Well, Tor says, it looks like we got 2 pieces of it left. Of the cheesecake, that is. So long story short, upstairs in Sakura's room, that's when Sakura told Kiro that that's the only piece of the cheesecake that was left. Just for him, of course. Well, Kiro's not exactly happy about it, so Sakura apologized. On top of that, Sakura explains to Kiro, well, it's a very long story. But then he had a suggestion. Why don't you use the little card instead? Really? Sakura asked. So you know what this means? That problem's been solved. So you know what this means? Sakura uses the little card on Kiro. So now he gets to have the bigger piece than what he usually gets. So you know what this means? Now that Sakura has 24 cards on the list, so that means Lee, although luckily he's not in this episode, he still has 2 cards. So there's still a lot of cards to go. So that ends episode 24.